Doom v Vamos v Vamos Epicureans. This is the BCE Comics Pod one-shot edition. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing well, particularly since we are participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club, and we are starting a new volume today, Volume 10, God Loves, Man Kills. All right, so I think I've mentioned before that in kind of giving an overview of the volume, I prefer to read the whole thing first, but we're reading just one of these a day, so I haven't done that. So, here we go. What we have for the contents of this volume, we have Uncanny X-Men number 168 to 175, X-Men Annual number 7, Marvel Graphic Novel number 5, and the Wolverine Limited Series number 1 through 4. All right, on the back cover it says, by 1982, the X-Men had become the biggest franchise in comics. The engine driving it all was Uncanny X-Men, where Chris Claremont's deft character work and potent exploration of the mutant metaphor captivated readers. Claremont continued to find new dramatic heights with artist Paul Smith as they unfurled a growing romance between Kitty Pryde and Colossus. The first appearance of Callisto and the Morlocks, Rogue's debut with the team, and the wedding of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. Claremont's writing rose to find perhaps his most poignant and challenging expression in his graphic novel with artist Brett Anderson, God Loves, Man Kills. Meanwhile, he collaborated with Frank Miller on the first Wolverine miniseries, which skyrocketed the character's popularity into the stratosphere. All right. Anything you want to add on the quick overview there, Stojr?
I think that this volume came out last December, so it was released a year ago, fairly new in the grand scheme of things. It is probably a contender for the most highly rated and anticipated volume of the Epic collections. Maybe anticipated is the wrong word because there's some that are that they haven't printed that people want. But you have the beginning of the Wolverine series in here. You have the wedding of Madeline and Cyclops, like you said. You get Frank Miller art, Paul Smith art. You get Morlocks. You get all sorts of great stories here. You get Rogue joining the X-Men. This is, for a lot of people, the quintessential X-Men stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, it's really something. And we're about to get into an issue here of God Loves, Man Kills. This is all. They based movies about this, right? Like the things that are here are really strong. So I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm going to start talking about the graphic novel.
Yeah.
Let's dive in.
Okay, I will say that with the black cover, this might also be a contender for most smudgy epic. Got to be careful with those fingerprints on these things. Okay, so we start off with a bang. The titular issue, Marvel Graphic Novel number 5. Wait a minute. I don't have the right slide up. There we go. Marvel Graphic Novel number 5, God Loves, Man Kills by Chris Claremont and Brent Eric Anderson. I'll note that before I begin, this is a 60-page story that contains so much more depth than my brief summary is going to provide. But that's the whole idea behind the summary. I don't want to read the story for you, right? You guys want to read it, and then we want to talk about it. Okay, if by chance you read the interview with Chris Claremont in the back, which I did because I usually leave those things for last, but I wanted to be prepared. You'll see that he approached this story as a way to give any reader a one-and-done experience that would explain to the reader just what the X-Men are all about. Rather than getting hung up in 175 issues of Uncanny X-Men, this is your one go-to shot to get that. Okay, so, as for the story, Reverend Stryker sets out on a religious crusade against mutants, whom he believes to be an abomination towards God. As part of his plan, he kidnaps Charles Xavier and plans to manipulate and brainwash him to use his psychic powers to kill every mutant on the Earth live on television. Well, in order to rescue Charles, the X-Men team up with Magneto, their arch-enemy, and they confront Stryker at his televised event. But they're left to defeat not just the man, but to defeat his ideas as well. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
I did not read this as a kid or as following X-Men. until fairly late in Journeys. I probably read it in the last 5 or 10 years on Marvel Unlimited. Um, I didn't own it until now, until the last year, and within the last year, I was able to pick up the single issues of the extended edition. The extended edition splits the story into a part one and part two, and has a intro, an outlog, a prologue, and an epilogue, written by Chris Claremont and drawn by Brent Anderson. That kind of have Kitty almost like telling the story to somebody in some quasi futuristic, where the government is hunting people down and trying to, capture them because of who they are. Nothing that we could relate to in real life. It's just completely foreign to what's happening in the world today. But regardless of that, this story is so well done. It's framed up as an adult story from the very beginning. There's cursing in this. There is some strong language that the Epic Collection actually censored, and I think that they felt that they were damned if they did, damned if they didn't. The reprint of the extended edition did not censor it, and I think is there something in the back that doesn't censor it or something like that. But it's a very strong conversation here where Kitty and and Stevie
Stevie.
are talking. And I don't know why I forgot her name. Her name's Stevie, and I'm Steve. So, but where they're talking, and they're calling Kitty a mutie or something
Mutie,
like
yep.
that, and and she says, well, what if you were somebody who's calling you the N-word? And that interaction has been so parodied nowadays, right? Like, that's my version or my class or my group's version of the N-word, and it doesn't have that weight. But in this fictional universe where there's mutants that are literally being murdered on swing sets, like this opens up, it carries weight here, and I think it's very strong. Couple other very interesting aspects of this. This is the first time you really feel like the X-Men are a family. We've been reading the X-Men. They've been going into space. They've been at the mansion, but we really only see them kind of in the danger room. We've seen them on some weird island or whatever. There's pages here where they're just watching TV. And I think that, granted, we saw the New Mutants doing that in the last issue, but we haven't really seen the X-Men just like full on downtime, like hush, the movie's coming on, type of interactions in this way. And it feels like very cozy. It feels like very natural. It really brings them together. The other thing is the danger room sequence actually felt interesting. A lot of times they're just in the danger room, they're hitting something, they're jumping around, they're fighting something, whatever. Something goes wrong, so to speak. This is like they have a specific objective, and there's like a trick to it, or it's like a puzzle. And I thought that was extremely interesting. Going forward and seeing Scott getting assassinated, I mean, it looks like you're watching the JFK assassination. And if you're reading this book, you may not be sure on page 21 that Scott's going to survive. I mean, this is a graphic novel. It's what? Graphic novel number 5, I
Number
think,
five, yep.
is what we said. Yep. And these are books where, new characters are introduced. There's more adult themes. This thing costs like, 10 times the amount of a normal comic book. The next issue is 60 cents. This is almost $6. So, things could really happen here and have lasting effects. And that looks like he's assassinated like JFK, right? Like he's falling out of the roof of a convertible there. All of this feels very real. It feels very powerful. Feels very natural. Like this feels like the real world, and you can see why they adapted a lot of these elements, if not taking everything entirely. I think they merged characters together, or they chickened out on the religious elements of it, and they gave you the Striker that we got in X-Men 2. And X-Men 2 is a really good movie for its time, but it doesn't have any of the TV evangelist angle to it at that time. Um, and I mean, there are some really dark things in here. The other, including the background of Stryker and what he does to his newborn baby and ultimately his wife in that car accident. Um, this is also the real, the I want to say the beginning because we saw that in X-Men 150, but this is the consequences of Magneto making a redemption arc. This is, he doesn't join the X-Men in this issue, but he teams up with the X-Men here. I mean, he has a way of thinking. It's really clearly laying that out for people on what the difference is between Charles and Eric's point of view is, and why when you look at this and you think about that, there's pluses and minuses to both sides. It's not as clear cut, mustache twirly villain as it might have been, 75 or 100 issues ago, as you go through this. Um, the mind control element and the sort of the brainwashing element is the only thing that kind of gets into a little bit too fantastical for me, I guess. Like for such a grounded story, I feel like that part is not maybe necessary as you go through this. We also get Kitty with a code name and a new costume that I don't think we've seen before, being called Ariel, with sort of those eye masks and stuff like that. I think that the ending of this story is really dark and really strong too, right? That you see these people that didn't realize that they were mutants and the deaths that happen here. And to have Kitty, who was so scared of Nightcrawler early on in the introduction when she first joined, be the one to defend him as he's singled out as a demon, as a monster, is such a good sort of such good writing and a good cementing of that friendship that will continue into the Excalibur series as we go forward. So as somebody who like didn't read this and didn't grow up on this and stuff like that and has discovered this later, I cannot say enough good things about this. I would recommend this book to anybody over a certain age, because I think it's so powerful. It does such a good job of telling the story. I mean, it's a near perfect X-Men story.
Yep.
Thoughts?
Oh yeah, no, fully agree. I think you've hit on darn near all the points I wanted to make, honestly. But yeah, this is a great entry point for those who do not know anything about the X-Men. And that was the purpose behind it, right? That was the intention. Exactly what you were saying about Kitty and Nightcrawler there, right? That Kitty got over her initial fears. She is now defending Nightcrawler's humanity against someone who looks human. Their actions, their character, that's what defines their humanity, not a person's physicality. And that's what Stryker is doing, is he's just kind of looking at the physicality, right? And I think, the story, it firmly cements the place of the X-Men as the hated minorities in the Marvel Universe, right? Obviously, we the readers don't feel that way. We're on their side. We know that this is unjust and so forth. And I feel like the story is definitely feeding off of a lot of the public fears that we had in the 80s with TV preachers promoting the satanic panic and so forth. And I didn't really think about it until just as we were kind of talking through this, but the motif of the television screen, of people watching things on the screen and so forth, it plays throughout the whole thing. So you kind of have this I guess it's the way that people were viewing the world and viewing these preachers at the time. And in that interview in the back of the volume, Claremont talks about how he got the idea when he attended a conference and was watching TV preachers in the morning when he got up and got ready. But like kind of in the culmination, this is on page, let's see, page 60, right? When Stryker's one of his purifiers is starting to bleed and she's dying because Professor X is killing all mutants and so forth, and she says to Stryker, how why would you not save me? I've been loyal to you. And he casts her off because, well, she's impure, unclean, and she falls from the podium, and you see the her fall being framed by a television screen, right? It's one single panel, but you get the television framing.
Frames.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just it fits so well. It just fits so much with what they were doing with Stryker being this TV evangelist, and how he is an instance of one of these TV evangelists who's using his podium and his speaking ability for bad, right? Which is not supposed to be the purpose, but and of course he doesn't view it that way. It's the common trope, and the thing that works so well with Marvel villains is they all believe they're doing the right thing. Well, not all. Okay, some are insane and so forth, but for the most part, that's what's great about Marvel is they try to make these people realistic, and we definitely have that here. With Stryker, you could see how in his twisted interpretation of things, how he's come to this quasi logical conclusion that he needs to eliminate mutants. And he's wrong, and we side with the X Men on this, but you could also see how he got there.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the the reality of if there was something that was replacing you at the top of the food chain, would you be as benevolent as you think you would be?
Mm-hmm.
And, so we are humans, we run the earth, we're the top of the food chain. But if there was something that was better, more powerful than us, whatever, right? Even if it was something simple like, somebody could live an extra 20 years or, was, taller or whatever. Like pick out something that's not as fantastical as mutants. You know, how would we handle that, right? Like we have a hard enough time over the course of human history with race relations. How would we handle genetic relations? And I think Claremont continues to play with this throughout the rest of this volume as he introduces the Morlocks and starts to talk about that, through the lens of, well, what if mutants weren't hot and didn't, have, Doctor Doom and Dracula trying to, get your number, right? And we have a little bit of that with Nightcrawler. Don't get me wrong, but he's one person. Like, what if there was a whole group of them and things of that nature? So, I think this is planting a seed that he continues to play with as we go forward here, and it's very interesting.
Yep. Um, I'm not sure what else to say on this. It's a masterpiece. There's people probably smarter than we who have analyzed this to death. I mean, we going back to the stuff that's in the extras of this volume. There's an essay that came with the extended version, kind of breaking down this. This is by John Jennings, who is let's see. I'm just reading from the stuff in the back. John Jennings is an Eisner Award-winning scholar and artist, and a New York Times bestselling author for his artwork on the graphic novel adaptation of Octavia E. Butler's Kindred. Jennings is also a professor of media and cultural studies at the University of California, Riverside, founder and curator of the Abrams Megascope, a new line of comic books from Abrams Comic Arts that focuses primarily on speculative graphic novels by and or about people of color. So, there are people who write essays about this sort of thing and scholarly works and so forth. Kind of dawns on me. When I was an undergrad, I took a religion and popular culture course. And I actually did an essay in that course on religion and comic books, which I didn't even think to include this. This would have been a great thing to include in that, but I didn't. I laugh at that because after I took the course, one of the required readings in that course for the next year was The Watchmen. I don't think my professors had considered comic books either, and they started incorporating it. One one other thing I forgot because as I'm flipping through the bonus stuff. Originally, Neil Adams had been tapped to do the art for this. We get his pencils in the back for the first 6 pages or so, and of course, what exactly that would have turned up like, hard to say. But some really fantastic artwork. It's Neil Adams, of course it is, but it it comes together as a brilliant piece of work with Brent Eric Anderson on the art anyway. So
Yeah, and so a couple of additional or closing thoughts, maybe. The revisited edition has those interviews. So obviously, if you have the epic, you're only missing sort of the epilogue that we have here. I haven't read the bonus material, the interviews at the end yet, which are also in this book. and they're in the issue 1 of the book. And I think, by the way, these are variant covers, so you could see these as there's different covers for this book. I just happen to get the variant covers. But the person that they have this framing device with, that Katie's telling a story to, I think ties into the Magneto series that was out at that time.
Yep.
Because I was trying to figure out like what's the reveal here of like why this person's there, and I think it has something to do with these pages here where it says that this is from Magneto, pages 1 to 3 or whatever. So so there's some things that it tied into at that time. Before this. If you're interested in other stories that are similar, we were talking before this, but I couldn't remember if it's good or bad. But Claremont does have an Extreme X-Men run in the early 2000s. I think it runs for about 40 or 50 issues. I think I finally got all the single issues. So now I can read it through. And of course, now that I have all the single issues and can read it through, they'll come out with an Epic collection or well, I think there's already an Omni, maybe.
I think
Not
there
really
is an
sure.
Omni. I think I
But
saw that.
yeah, I think there is. So, but within there is around issue 25. There's a 6-part God Loves, Man Kills Too. I have no idea if it's good or bad, but the story is there. And I think that the concept of the purifiers has, permeated into other forms, right? You have the Friends of Humanity that were in the X-Men cartoon. You get various, incarnations that were in the X-Men over the years. I think in the early 2000 or maybe mid 2000s, there's also a storyline where they maybe revive Stryker. There's a whole bunch of like zombie villains or something like that. So there's a couple times that they go back to this well of this person, but nothing compares to this original. This original graphic novel. It's kept in print for a particular reason.
Yep. No, this is definitely a highlight of X-Men reading. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up there. If you guys have enjoyed our thoughts, follow us on YouTube. Again, we're going to read, rate, and review a full big collected edition comic once a month, plus these daily one-shots. Thank you guys again for watching. Send us comments. Let us know what you like. And we're happy to interact. Shout-outs to all the guys that we have following. All right. Until next time, we'll see you then.
How's it going?